Hello and welcome to the Spokane County Spotlight. I'm County Commissioner Mary Kuney, and today we have several special guests with us to discuss the current environment for the construction industry in our region during this turbulent time. Joining me today are Suzanne Schmidt, CEO and President of Associated Builders and Contractors Inland Pacific Chapter, Cheryl Stewart, Executive Director of Inland Northwest Associated General Contractors, and Joel White, Executive Officer of Spokane Home Builders Association. With precautions around social distancing for COVID-19, we've decided to visit with each of our guests separately. We'll be starting today with our conversation with Suzanne Schmidt, CEO and President of Associated Builders and Contractors Inland Pacific Chapter, or otherwise known as ABC. Suzanne, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mary. And first of all, I'd like to start with thanking you for inviting me to be part of this conversation. Just a little bit about myself. I have lived in Spokane for nearly 23 years. I'm married. I have 3 children, 3 grandchildren. I joined ABC, or Associated Builders and Contractors, back in 2004. I was hired as their retro program manager, or workers' comp program. In 2014, I was promoted to Vice President of Member Services, and then I was appointed President, CEO in May of 2016.
Very good. And can you tell us a little bit about the organization and what ABC does?
Yeah, so Associated Builders and Contractors, most of our members are open shop commercial contractors. So they build things like retail stores, hotels, doctor's offices, veterinary clinics, things like that. We do also do some public works, hospitals, schools, affordable housing. Also, our association is a national association, so we have 69 chapters throughout the United States, and we provide resources to our members, safety services, educational opportunities, at all levels of the industry, from the office out to the guys in the field, the folks out in the field. We also are very active in workforce development, so going out and visiting the schools and recruiting.
And with workforce development, you actually have, programs here in Spokane as well that you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So so that's what we do that at a national level, but also in our community.
Very good. Well, looking back at the beginning of the year, before we were inundated with the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis, how is the building industry doing regionally? Back in January, everybody was crazy busy. I mean, we actually didn't have the slowdown like we usually do in December. So, I mean, it was a little bit of a slowdown, but certainly nothing like we'd seen before. So people were crazy busy. They had more work on the books than they thought they could possibly handle. They were turning jobs down. So their biggest concern in January was probably, are we going to have the workforce to complete the projects that we have on the books? Yeah, and it's a very different environment now. And so, the governor's had the stay-home order, was announced on March 23rd, which has now been extended to at least the end of May. What impact has that stay-at-home order had on your members and their employees? Well, our association, along with with most of our members, we actually shut down on March 23rd. So our office shut down. Myself and my Vice President of Member Services have been teleworking since March 23rd. I laid off 3 employees. I did bring 1 employee back with the Phase 1 construction restart. But most of our members, they've been laying people off. They're kind of just waiting for that restart and struggling, really. It's actually been very heartbreaking to witness and to experience and just, manning those calls, having people calling in and when is construction going to restart and what are we going to do and those kinds of things. So, because remember, we're commercial construction, so commercial construction was not deemed essential in that order of March 23rd. Yeah, because your membership, they don't do as many public works contracts as some of the other groups do. And so, when, local governments had the option to keep their projects going,
that really wasn't helpful, for your group.
Right, exactly. It was, yeah, so yeah, because we didn't have, we do have a few contractors that were working on public works that were deemed essential, but the majority of our contractors, again, do new commercial construction, and that was not part of the governor's orders. So we've been working with the Washington Construction Industry Council, AGC, home builders. You'll hear a little more from Cheryl later in the conversation about the governor's roundtable, but we've been working with all of the construction industry organizations and associations trying to get work restarted, because again, we did have so many people that were just sitting on the sidelines struggling, and small businesses that we don't know they're going to make it through this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's so important, and that's what, having all three of you on the program today, I think shows that united front that the construction industry did, that it's, you may compete, feel like people compete,
Right.
but this is the time where everybody comes together and looks at the greater good for themselves and the economy to make sure that we're all working together.
Right.
So then with that, at the end of April, we received good news from the governor's office that certain construction projects would be allowed to resume. Could you give us an overview of what that looks like for your members?
Yeah, so yeah, that was good news. Again, it was still, it was essential construction, and then the phase one, coming from, and let me backtrack and say that we were, in conversations with the governor's roundtable, so we knew that those conversations were happening, and we were preparing our members, knowing that the governor, that we were looking at a phase one document that was going to have points of not just social distancing, but all, there's very, very strict criteria to the social distancing, personal hygiene, things like that on the job site. So we knew that was coming down. So what we were doing while that was happening is, trying to, teach our members, get control, so COVID-19 safety plans in place. We had some roundtable conversations with L&I, and then we also were encouraging them to buy PPE, get gloves, face masks, hand sanitizer, those kinds of things. We actually went out hunting those products down as well. So that was good news for us. However, we don't know, how this is going to end up. I mean, are we, we're new construction, so is there going to be projects, are the owners going to pull funding? Are they going to be canceled? The sooner that we are able to reopen Spokane and get back to work, the better for all of us. So that's, something that we're working on.
No, and as we've talked, as commissioners, we're very concerned about that, and we're working hard to try to look at opening up to phase two sooner. So, because it's a burden on all of our community and our economy. So I want to say thank you very much for being with us today. I really appreciate the opportunity for you to talk to our audience.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great to see you in person.
Yes, definitely during this time. It's nice to see people face to face. My next guest is Cheryl Stewart, Executive Director of the Inland Northwest Associated General Contractors, or as we know it, AGC. Cheryl, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mary.
Can you give me a brief introduction about yourself and about your organization?
Certainly. My name is Cheryl Stewart. As you said, I'm the Executive Director of the AGC. I've been with the organization for about 18 years now, so quite a while. I've been in this role for the past 5. We are a commercial contractors association, so we represent contractors throughout Eastern Washington and North Idaho, bridge builders, road builders, office, schools, basically anything except residential. And we provide services to them. Our main job is to advocate for them. So we represent the industry and we speak on their behalf. And then we also provide services such as education, safety, networking opportunities, and then group products and discounts. Basically anything that is better done on a group scale.
Very good. And you've got your necklace on, and so tell us a little bit about your family as well.
Yes, I do. I'm married to a Spokane police officer. I have 2 kids. We live here in Spokane. We're having an adventure in homeschooling right now, so
it is an adventure.
It has been. So they're doing great, though.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, how has AGC been engaging with your members and other employers during this time?
I can tell you that the AGC, we've probably never been more engaged with our members, honestly. We've been working very hard to get information out to them. There's so much information coming at us all the time, as you know. So to find that that's relevant to them and disseminate it out to them and make sure they have the correct information. There's also a lot of rumors going around right now about what is and is not happening. So we're really trying to get as much accurate information out to them and then also provide them resources. So much of this is a safety issue. And in construction, we've always been more than willing to share best practices and share safety resources. We don't consider our employee safety as a competitive advantage. It's a public health issue. So really getting people together to share what those best practices are, providing them job site signage, safety plans. We've even started gathering PPE because a lot of the new safety regulations call for PPE. So we've been gathering that together to get them over this initial hump and get them back to work.
And I know you were very helpful, with me as a commissioner, getting information to our Public Works Department and our Parks Department, who had contracts that were going on during this time, because we could continue those as essential.
Yep.
And so I know we appreciate that information, and it was that sharing of information early on to make sure that we were asking as the county for those site-specific safety plans for COVID-19 and all of that. So I just want to say, it was a very collaborative effort, and everybody was working together.
Yes, thank you. And I think that communication with owners as well has been important, because I think we're all figuring this out as we go along, and that constant communication back and forth between contracts and owners, things people aren't thinking about, that practical implications of some of these play out different on every job site. So we have to keep those lines of communication constantly open.
Yeah, no, and so thank you. It's been a huge help, I think, for everybody. And again, it's a public health issue. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest impacts the current COVID-19 pandemic has caused is on our economy. How has this crisis affected the general contractors, financially, and then what does the general contractors do to our economy?
So I think a lot of it is yet to be seen. As you know, some construction kept going, a lot of essential construction kept going, and some companies weren't affected at all. Some obviously had to shut everything down. And so there's direct costs. There's the cost of this additional PPE that they have to purchase. There's the cost of employment, that construction companies are very good about taking care of their own and their own employees and doing what's best for them. So these employment costs when there aren't projects ongoing. I think there's going to be a lot of costs from inefficiencies that these new rules bring about, that we'll have to see how that plays out. We're trying to do things with people spread further apart and keep that social distancing, which is very important, but it does make us a little less efficient, and that's going to cost money. For those projects that were shut down, there was rental equipment that was sitting there not being used that has to be paid for. So I think a lot of that's yet to be seen. I think it's going to depend what the economy looks like after this. In Idaho, it's kept going. Idaho construction's continued to keep going, and now they are starting to see future projects shut down because governments and public entities are seeing less tax revenue. They're starting to shut down projects, and so the economic future is a little bit more uncertain for them, which is why you hear a lot of talk in the next stimulus package of some kind of infrastructure program, because I think they understand that construction plays such a huge role in our economy. In Washington State alone, we contribute 25% of all sales tax revenue is from construction activity. So if you think of that, a quarter of the state sales tax revenue.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I honestly don't know the figures for Spokane County, but statewide, $1.1 billion has gone to local governments in sales tax revenue. So if that slows down, if that even cuts in half, that is a huge impact to everyone. We employ roughly 276,000 workers across the state, about 11,000 here in Spokane County, which makes up about 10% of the workforce. So again, that economic hit could be huge if construction continues to slow down.
No, definitely. And so, so one of the things that AGC was very proactive in was being part of the Construction Roundtable, which was comprised of labor and management groups that successfully got the governor to look at and to reopen some construction. Can you describe what types of projects are allowed to open now and the new safety requirements, as well as kind of talk about that process with the Construction Roundtable?
Certainly, and first of all, a huge shout out to everyone who participated in the Roundtable. They put in a lot of hours and a lot of work to get this going. And we were very proactive from the beginning because, as I said, we had some projects still going, and this has been very confusing, and now new projects starting up. So we did have to figure out our safety rules early and get those put together. And then it was important to us, too, that we're really good at dealing with safety issues For, we see risks, we mitigate them every day. So we wanted to be able to look at this as another risk, figure out how to mitigate it, and develop our own plan. And we need to be proactive and take it to the governor and to the state agencies. Get their buy-in would be the most effective for us. So they did a lot of really good work. So there has been a lot of confusion around what kind of projects can open. We hear a lot that residential is now open, and they can be, but that's not what the phase 1 document was. It was for low risk construction. So that means any type of construction project that has that can maintain social distancing. So those are the type of projects that can start back up, residential and commercial both. It's confusing for the public because there is also essential projects that are still ongoing. So they see people within those 6 feet and they get really concerned about that. Those projects can still go. They have to take additional safety measures to be within that 6 foot. So, every site needs to have a construction site supervisor. We're doing additional training. There's additional PPE on every job site. Really doing everything we can to keep our workers safe. I think taking temperatures before they come on site. A lot is really being done, and I think it's great to see them back at work in the economy.
Yeah, so one last question I want to ask you is, how did the contractors recover from this pandemic?
Again, I think we're gonna have to see. Hopefully, contractors are really resilient. We've recovered from this before. We're kind of hoping a lot of them don't have to recover, that they can keep working and that it keeps going. And it'll depend on what the economy looks like after this. Everyone's really nervous about that. If construction can keep going, we'll be fine. We can take a month or 2 hit. Again, contractors are very resilient and they figure out how to make things work. So we're just hoping for a strong economy to come back soon.
Yeah, and I think with the safety plans that you guys put in place right away for those job sites that stayed open this whole time, we aren't seeing positive cases come out of those job sites.
No,
so I mean,
not.
the safety standards that you guys put in place, really made a difference and had an impact on our community. So I just want to say thank you for that, because that's very important for us as commissioners, knowing that we're doing the right thing for our citizens and keeping them safe. And so I think, again, and you guys have a lot of these resources that are on your website.
Yes.
Can you say the website's name?
Yeah, our website's nwagc.org. And right on the front page is a link to the COVID-19 Resource Center.
And so anyone can access that. You don't have to be a member. You're sharing that openly with everybody. So I just want to say thank you very much for being my guest today, and appreciate all you're doing for our economy and for the construction industry.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
My final guest today is Joel White, Executive Officer of the Spokane Home Builders Association. Joel, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mary. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it also. So if you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been in my position at Spokane Home Builders Association for about almost 15 years. I basically, my whole career has been working for the construction industry, except for a small portion outside of work for the Boy Scouts. And I've got my family, we live in Spokane Valley, and I've got 2 children that are almost teenagers, and my wife, so yeah.
And you're home, they're home, doing the homeschool thing now?
Yeah, they are doing homeschool. It has been a fun issue for my wife, so yeah.
Yes, I bet. Could you give me a brief overview of the Spokane Home Builders Association and tell me what kinds of services the Home Builders provides to the Spokane community?
Yeah. So the Spokane Home Builders Association has been in serving our community since 1947. So we've had a long history in Spokane being part of our community. And so we have about 750 members. We actually cover a 7-county territory of northeastern Washington. And so our focus is, we promote, protect, and educate our members on housing-related issues and also our community. So promotion is really, we have our Fall Festival of Homes. We talk about the value that new construction provides to our community. And then the protection, we do work on trying to keep houses attainable. So getting rid of unnecessary regulation, fighting against some regulation that doesn't really provide a lot of value but has a significant cost and pushes people out of the potential to buy a home. It prices them out. And then the last is education. That's making our members better business people, and then also helping educate the community on the value of housing.
And with your membership, it's home builders, it's landscapers. Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah,
so our membership, everybody says, well, you're the home builders. Well, we have general contractors that are a big chunk of our membership, but we have a lot of other members. So we have subcontractors and suppliers as well. So even though you have the general contractor, we have plumbers, electricians, framing contractors, everyone that actually builds the house. And then you have the service companies that are the title companies, realtors, everything else that makes the process work. And then you have the suppliers. So you actually have all the lumber yards, plumbing supplies, everything else you can think of, electrical supplies that are serviced. And we actually even have hotels that are members, and actually a couple of restaurants as well. So our members actually sort of like a mini chamber of commerce for the construction industry.
No, that's awesome. And before we get into the current environment for home builders, can you give our audience an overview of what the housing industry looked like before the COVID crisis?
So we were in a housing crisis as we went into this. So we were struggling to keep up with the demand. A lot of different issues happened. It was really tied to labor. And we always say that housing is tied to lots, land, land, labor, and lumber. So land is really tied to lots. Are there enough available lots? With Growth Management Act, that's been a really challenge. I know the commissioners are very keen and aware of those issues.
Yes.
And so that's been a challenge. Is there enough land to build on? So that drives up pricing, pushes people out of housing. So for every $1,000 of price increases in Spokane, it pushes about 200 families out of the ability to purchase a home. So that is a big chunk. The other part was lumber, and that's really the materials cost. So materials actually stabilized. We haven't seen a big increase, so that's been great. But then the last part was labor. We've seen a significant shortage from all construction industries, most trades. They just have left. There's the school system and others, and society as a whole is pushed against that. Now we were starting to see some rebound, but we were building about 1,500 homes, single-family homes a year for about almost 4 years straight. We just capped. That's about the maximum we could build. So that was where we were at. Multifamily sort of bounced around a little bit, and that tied to the demands of the community, and a lot of people just couldn't afford a home, new homes.
Right.
And so it's a benefit trying to provide those services to our community. But we were sort of at a stable level. We just couldn't really grow because of land shortages and labor shortages. That's about what we could. We sort of had maxed out for the ability to build houses.
Okay, no, which is very interesting. And so then once the stay-at-home order was enacted, what kind of impact did that have on the home building industry?
Well, first off was a lot of frustration with the members, given that in our state we were one of only 4 states where residential construction wasn't included as essential, given that housing and shelter is an essential, portion of life.
Right.
And so that was really frustrating that our governor didn't include us at the last minute as an essential business. So, but it was trying to get houses finished. Really, that was the biggest issue. Is a lot of these houses were under construction, contracted. Home buyers were panicking because they had already sold their existing house, or they'd given up their lease on their rental unit, and so they were going to be homeless in a short period of time because builders were told, you have to stop whatever you're doing. You have to get off the job sites. Even though we felt strongly, and as an industry, that our members could actually work safely. And even with, the first 2 weeks we understood that was for safety precautions, but we felt we could actually build safety precautions on the website, keep the social distancing, other elements to build those homes, to at least finish those homes, to get those buyers into their homes.
Now, which I think was, very important, because we were hearing it in the commissioner's office, people that potentially were going to be homeless because they had sold their house. They're, expecting their new house to be finished. And
we were so grateful for the support of the county commissioners, our mayors, local mayors, other elected officials, Congresswoman Kathleen Morris-Rogers, Congressman Dan Newhouse who's out of Central Washington as well. They all stepped up and encouraged the governor to open up new construction and to allow those houses to be completed. So it was a frustrating time. We understand we definitely didn't want to cause any issues with our members. Definitely didn't for their own employees and also the community. They didn't want to be that, but we felt very strongly, and we still believe that we can be very safe on a job site. And again, 46 other states felt the same way. So
no, exactly. Well, as we start phase 1 construction, now that the governor has approved that, can you tell me how the new safety requirements affect new home construction?
So it's going to make it more difficult. It is a challenge. So builders, they're happy to be back working and can be able to complete the projects that they'd already started, which is great. There's challenges though with that, is that there's more restrictions, and then there's costs too. So those costs, some of the builder eats, but some of it goes on to the potential home buyer.
Right.
So those costs drive more people out of ability to purchase a new home. And so those things is because existing homes also get priced higher as new construction goes higher. So those are challenges that our community is going to face down the road. And again, but we want to be safe on the job sites, keep the employees safe. There's probably a little bit of excess in some of the new rules, but I think there's going to be some challenges with wearing masks all day. You're out working in the hot sun as we go into summertime. There's just going to be some challenges as we move forward. And the houses will be built slower, so we still have the housing shortage. We still have this fundamental housing crisis. So houses, we're just finishing the existing housing stock. We haven't been, the phase one did not allow for new construction to begin.
Right, and that's kind of the last question, is asking about Spokane housing inventory and the market demands and the barriers in light of COVID-19.
Yeah, and that's the biggest question mark going forward, is how quickly can we get this into phase two so we can start putting new foundations in, excavate lots so we can move forward, start building new homes, because there's still going to be demand. We know there's still in migration from other communities to Spokane, because we have a wonderful community to live in, and the commissioners and our elected officials do a great job. But it's that, how do we continue working forward to provide that housing that our community so desperately needs? And again, that's what we need to get moving again as quickly as we can in a safe manner, making sure that our citizens are protected and our workers are protected. We definitely, no business owner wants to harm their workers.
No, and I think the construction industry has done a great job of ensuring that those safety standards were in place to protect their workers, so their workers felt comfortable coming to work, their families felt comfortable letting them come back home, and it just helps with as we move forward.
And no workers being forced to go back to work. They have that option to stay home, but there was a lot of our builders and the subcontractors, the workers that wanted to get back to work because they work paycheck to paycheck,
right,
and they need to work to provide for their families. So that was a big issue to get them back to work.
No, very important. So thank you very much for being part of the program today. I really appreciate it, Joel. And I hope you've enjoyed our discussion, and I think our viewers have too, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. I'd like to thank all of my guests for joining us here today and thank them for their leadership and commitment to our community during this difficult time. As a reminder, a video of today's Spotlight can be accessed on our Spokane County homepage and our Spokane County YouTube channel. You can also listen on the go and download our Spokane County Spotlights as a podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes apps. Just go to one of those apps and search for Spokane County. I'm County Commissioner Mary Kuney. Thank you for joining us today on the Spokane County Spotlight.